The Penguin is a new show on HBO, the series finale of which just aired earlier tonight. This is in the same universe as Matt Reeves' The Batman that came out a couple of years ago, and I can't wait to talk to you guys more about this show. But if you have not seen it yet, or the series finale that just aired, there are going to be spoilers in this video. You have been warned. Without further ado, let's dive in. This starts right after the events of that movie, where there's a bit of a power vacuum after the events of it. Gotham has been flooded, Carmine Falcone is dead, Salvatore Maroni is in prison. Perfect time for Oswald Cobb, played once again by Colin Farrell, to take over and make his mark on the city. However, it's not going to be an easy climb. He's gonna have to do a lot of things and probably get a lot of people killed in the process, but the hustle makes it all worth it, hopefully. This is a show that I was pumped for because I think between The Batman and even the Riddler Year One, the comic series, if you haven't read that, by the way, go check that out. There is something so fascinating going on with Matt Reeves' Batman universe. And it's something that has excited me to the point of wanting to count down the minutes to something new. Like The Batman, I loved. That was one of my favorite movies of 2022. I thought that did an outstanding job with the character and setting up this version of Gotham. And the Riddler Year One did a good job of adding some context to what was going on with him before the events of that movie and how he executed the plans that he had. With The Penguin, you get a basis to who this character is and who he was, while also looking at all the steps that he is taking going forward. And right out the gate, one thing I like about The Penguin is that it establishes there is no such thing as safety when it comes to the mob. There is something so downright menacing and evil about how the gang operations are in the city, and the fact that anyone can die at any instant. In the first scene, pretty much, for instance, Alberto Falcone, who is Carmine's son, played by Michael Zagan, he is someone who comes into power and he's having a chat with Oz. Eventually, he starts making fun of Oz after Oz talks to him about being a celebrated, man on the streets, and Oz just shoots him. Like, that's it. He's dead instantly. And it's one of those things where right out the gate you see that and you go, well, that's the kind of show we're in. And it immediately also makes clear that he is now going to have to do everything to cover up the fact that he's done it, while also, making everybody turn on each other and get the job done. And Colin Farrell, once again, is incredible as this character. Aside from the fact that you cannot recognize him as Colin Farrell, which is once again just an astounding feat of the makeup effects over here, maybe aside from like 2 shots in the entire series, he is such a commanding presence over here. But make no mistake, despite all of that, the performance comes through in spades. There's a reason why Colin Farrell is such a great actor, and he does such a great job of bringing Oswald to life that it's almost like you're really seeing him just disappear into this role, and even empathizing with him in the process, because the show every now and then rides that line where it makes you empathize with some of the decisions that he's making, while also making you aware of the fact that at the end of the day, this man is a villain and he is willing to do whatever is necessary to get up on top. So that means if everybody else, even the people closest to him, have to die, he will let that happen as long as he gets what he wants. And the show makes that menacingly clear. Eventually, he ends up with a kid, Victor, played by Renzi Feliz, who is also fantastic in this show, and someone who eventually, grows to work with Oz in a very partner-like way, because he eventually starts to trust him. He has also lost his family in Gotham. He's been through a lot of hardships and tragedy because of the Riddler's actions. And so now he's trying to find a purpose. But as the show progresses, every now and then he is wondering if this is the right path. And even though he wants to get away, somewhere along the way, Oz manages to figure out that the reason he's not trying to run is because somewhere Vic knows he wants more. He wants there to be meaning to everything that's happened. And that's something the show, again, hones in on really well. Just the dichotomy of wanting to become someone like Oz, even though that's not necessarily the best thing to do. The real gem in the starring, however, of this show is Kristen Milioti as Sophia Falcone. Excuse me, Sophia Giganti. My apologies, my lady. She is extraordinary. And this is one of those vindicating moments because every now and then I feel like I see something with Kristen Milioti in it, and I think to myself, this is a great actress. Why isn't she getting the love that a lot of others do? Like, it's one of those things where you see someone in performances, right, for many, many years, and you think, you're an underrated actress, you're an underrated actor. Why aren't you in more things? And eventually there is that moment where they end up in something extremely popular or massive, and then everybody knows their names. I feel like The Penguin will do that for Kristen Milioti. If you're someone who watched How I Met Your Mother, then I guess it happened before, but I guess now you'll really remember her. And all the better, because she's excellent over here. The best work of her career, I would say. And I think it's something that she's been wanting to do her entire life, because I was reading interviews and, watching her on talk shows. Apparently, this was one of those lifelong dreams, to be a Batman villain. And the fact that she is getting to work with that in this universe and to play this role as well as she does is just a testament to that fact. Every scene with her is as brilliantly done as it can be and as well acted as it can be. And the writing for her is fantastic. Oz and Sophia have a history, and eventually the two of them lock horns over that, and they have to somewhat work together, but also it's built on this very flimsy line of trust that can come apart because, again, Oz killed her brother, and eventually that fact will come out and it will cause a huge amount of tension. And all of this is happening in the middle of a turf war. Other families in Gotham are trying to get their slices of the pie, and the Falcones and the Maronis are at it because that's an age-old war that's been going on. But it has come to a point where they're all ready to kill each other. And again, the violence that ensues from that is really visceral, which is interesting because the movie, The Batman, is PG-13. The show is rated TVMA. This is a bump up when it comes to the audience sense, and I think it's interesting. I'm trying to remember the last time something like that happened, where you went from a movie that kids could watch, which it's a hard PG-13. I don't know if you were wanting to take your 7-year-old to something like that, and then going into a show that is absolutely for adults. But the way the violence is shown over here, characters are burned alive, killed, beheaded, whatever it is. That's all happening on camera, and it's happening in the most visceral ways imaginable. It feels like you're watching an HBO show, which is, hey, that's what that is, right? It's not TV, it's HBO. And they do a really good job of making those sequences feel as visceral as they can. And the fact that every character is sort of on the chopping block is something that the show also makes very clear. It's also very well shot. There's some really great sequences over here. It's not shot by Greg Fraser, who did an excellent job with the first movie, but the visual sense of Gotham that is in this show is really great, especially when you look at it post that flood happening and everything is as decimated and run down, and the city is trying to essentially build its way back up into what it used to be. Currently, things are looking very desperate. Neighborhoods that were already not doing super great are even more in the can. And Penguin wants to use this to his advantage, because eventually, if he manages to get people on his side, he might be able to make even bigger moves and get the respect of people around him. It really is extraordinary because not a single episode feels wasted. Not a single line of dialogue feels like it's out of place. When it comes to exploring Sophia's past, as she's been in Arkham accused of being the hangman that her father was, as we know from the first movie's events, that is something that obviously scars her and eventually leads her to disown the family and kill the entire family. That happens in this excellent episode, which is episode 4, Chantani. And she wipes out all the Falcones, and eventually she drops the name and becomes Sofia Gigante. And she's once again very menacing as this character, but also it's so interesting how the show manages to explore all of this without feeling like they're subplots, because the main plot does come down to the fact that Penguin is making a power move to take over all of Gotham. And so all of the things that are happening with him are the main things, whether it be developing Bliss, this new drug on the streets that he gets hands of and eventually starts a lab out of underground, or whether it comes to dealing with Salvatore Maroni and pinning certain crimes on that family so that he can get away scot-free, eventually killing the Maronis pretty much single-handedly. Like, he wipes out Salvatore Maroni as well as his wife and kid in this really, disturbing way. Like, he burns the wife and her son alive, and then eventually Salvatore Maroni dies fighting him, and he's shot a bunch of times, in the middle of a heart attack. It's just, it's very, very gnarly stuff. And again, all hats off to the show for pulling it off as well as it does. All of this building to a very intense series finale, which really brings into perspective just the characterization of Oswald Cobb. Eventually, what does it all boil down to? Validation. He wants to do all of this because that's something he wants to do for his mother. And the connection that he has with her is built on a lot of broken trust and promises and tragedies that have faced them along the way. Wanting to get her out of places that are not great and to give her a great home and to have her be proud of him. But he's also had to do some selfish things in the process because his brothers are no more. And eventually you find out why. It's because he left them to die. And obviously that's something that makes him immediately unlikable, but the show plays that card again very effectively. That balance, like I was saying, you have to sort of go between someone who, is worth empathizing with to someone who is just a total monster. And the show plays that very effectively in the series finale because his mom is captured by Sophia. And since she's suffering from dementia, she is often, losing track of what's real and what's actually happening around her. And all of this is taking a toll until she eventually lets out that she knew what Oswald had done and that she hated him. And even then, in that moment, while he is trying to, figure out how to have her, not get hurt by Sophia, there is a part of him that is just letting it happen so that he can let the lie go on. And again, just cements the fact that this is not a good man. This is even more cemented as the rest of the episode progresses because eventually his connection with Victor, which you think is solid as anything else and everything is going to be fine, you know that somewhere along the way another shoe is going to drop and he's going to turn against that. And unfortunately for Victor, as great a character as he had been, he is eventually killed by Oswald at the end of the show. And it's heartbreaking to see that because, again, this kid has been through a lot. And there was an escape for him at one point that he could have taken, and he doesn't. And you'll always keep thinking, what if he had just gotten out of the car at that point? What if he had gone over to Gabriella, this girl he liked, and had said, hey, I'm getting on the bus with you. Let's get out of Gotham. What could have been? But then other things couldn't have happened for Oz. But then that is the loop that the show throws you in as to the origin of him becoming this grand villain that we know him as. Many will ask you, where is Bruce Wayne or Batman in the middle of all of this? The answer is recovering. You have to remember in the first movie, he got pretty badly injured. And Alfred's in the hospital. He's not exactly working with a lot of help or stuff here. He took a shotgun blast to the chest as well. This man needs some R&R to figure out what kind of hero he needs to be. But you know he's coming because at the end of this show, as Oz has taken out everybody in his path and Sophia's back in Arkham, it seems like he's on top of the world. He got everything he wanted. And as he's dancing away with Eve, Carmen Ejogo's character, the bat signal turns on in the sky. A shot that had a big grin on my face because, that's what you were waiting for. You were waiting for that moment the entire time, and it worked in spades. And that was an excellent way to call this off. But really, if I was to think about it, when I think about the entire show in general, I don't think I have a single issue with the Penguin. I think what is going on with this universe between the Batman and this show now, even the comic series, I think it's incredible, and I think that there is a handle on this side of DC that has made me more excited than anything else for what's to come. I cannot wait to see the Batman Part 2. And I would say next to Shogun, this is my favorite TV show of the year. It's outstanding storytelling. It's a fantastic character piece. It expands on the world of Gotham really, really well. It's tragic, it's heartbreaking, it's violent, it's compelling, and not a single moment again wasted. Got a great score too from Mick Giacchino, Michael Giacchino's son. Does a really good job of composing those themes. There's also some great songs used in here. A couple of things you might have heard already in the intro of this video. So I think all of it works as well as it can. And of course, those three lead performances, Colin Farrell, Kristen Milioti, and Renzi Feliz. Excellent work from all three of them. This is one of the best TV shows of 2024. Like I said, best only to the other best TV show. And it absolutely deserves every amount of praise that it can get. And I'm going to give The Penguin a well-deserved A+. Counting the minutes. I haven't been this excited since the Dark Knight trilogy for some stuff in DC. I'm looking forward to what James Gunn does with his DC universe, but right now with this, what a time it is. Like really, just it feels so good to be counting the minutes to something like this. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of The Penguin in the comments below. Have you guys seen the series finale yet? Let me know what you guys think. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe and happy streaming.